This right here is quite possibly the best film camera you can buy. The Minolta A7. I've been a Sony shooter right now for the past 15 or so years. I started off with the A mount in the A77 and quickly switched over to the E mount system when the A7R2 came out. Currently, I shoot with the A7R5 and I have a bunch of G Master glass. I just love the technology that is crammed into these systems and the ability for me to even get compact glass for me to travel with. But in 2025, I wanted to challenge myself. So I decided to go and get a film camera. And so I found a lens system that I think works absolutely amazing and helps build upon the Sony ecosystem that I currently own. I decided to go with the original A7, the Minolta A7. I decided to build out my Minolta / Sony A mount ecosystem again from scratch. And this thing, if you are looking to get into film, I think this is the camera you need to get. The Minolta A7 came out in 2001. It is the last film camera that Minolta created. And even a few years later than the Minolta A9, which a lot of photographers will argue is the most technologically advanced of the two, with its more robust construction, all metal, and faster frames per second. However, I would argue that this system is better for travel and more technologically advanced simply because you can use modern Sony lenses on this thing, and it still focuses perfectly. For example, I have the A mount Sony Zeiss 16 to 35, and it works just like any other camera would. You get the ability to shoot film using modern glass. Not quite as modern as the E mount. However, I think the A mount system lenses right now are still fantastic. They are still they're still sharp. They are still extremely well made. They're a little bit heavier than some of the E mount glass. However, I would put these up against the old Minolta glass any day. And the fact that you can get these secondhand relatively cheap is, I think, a no-brainer. You're able to shoot film. You're able to shoot film using modern technology, and I can't ask for anything better. That is why I chose the Minolta system over Canon or Nikon. And that being said, I understand that Canon and Nikon systems can use some modern glass. However, I wanted the ability to kind of use and adapt my old glass, my A-mount glass, to my A7R5 using the LA EA5. Now, when I first was deciding on getting a film camera, I was a little bit concerned about the size associated with film cameras in general. Like, would it have a mirror in it? Is it going to be just as bulky, if not bulkier, than my mirrorless system? And surprise to me that when I got this A7 system, comparing it side by side to my A7R5, the sizes are almost identical. Like, I just think that is absolutely wild. Like the fact that modern day Sony A7R5 system is just as big as a film camera. That being said, I understand like the original intent of the A7 mirrorless system was intended to be smaller than a DSLR. Yes, 100% understand that. But if we're afraid of a size differential of a film camera to a modern mirrorless camera, I wouldn't fret. And let me show you with two lenses side by side so that you can kind of get an understanding of what I mean here. And I'm going to put on the Minolta 50 1.4 on my A7R5. And then one of my favorite lenses to shoot with is the 28mm f2 system. I'm going to put it on the A7. So then you can see kind of the size difference here. See, even with the lenses being relatively similar, the size differential between the two camera systems are not that far apart. And personally, I like the look of this. It has that classic DSLR Minolta shape, and don't get me wrong, still love this camera, but it's just one of those things that it's more analog. It's lighter than this thing, but that's why I love it. If you're in the market for a film camera, I would highly recommend looking for a Minolta A7. The great thing also is that Minolta glass, majority of Minolta glass is relatively cheap comparatively to other modern day glass. And in a later video, I'm going to do some direct comparisons between how does this glass shoot on a modern sensor compared to how it looks like on film. It's not going to be the case for this video. It's mainly just talking about the Minolta A7 system that I have in general and kind of going through each of the lenses that I have and comparing it to the A7R5 initially. Not a direct head-to-head yet when it comes to actually shooting. That'll be at a later video. All right, now that you've seen the size difference between the A7R5 and the Minolta A7, let me show you what I have in my kit. To start off, I not only have the Minolta A7, but I have the American version, the Maxim 7. They are the exact same thing, except one is named Maxim, one is named A7. Personally, I'm glad Sony kept the A7 moniker for all future Sony cameras and did not keep the Maxim naming convention. All right, let's go down the list of the lenses that I own. First things up, the 24 f2.8. This thing is about the same size as the Sony E mount, the 24 f2.8, the 40 f2.5, and the 50 f2.5. Say it's about the same size as those things. Personally, I haven't shot with this thing yet, but I am looking forward to shooting with it in the future to see how those compare. Next thing up is my favorite lens to be shooting around the street, and that is the 28mm f2 28mm f2 lens. It's about the same size as the 24 f2.8, but this thing has a f2 aperture. I think it's an absolutely fantastic street photography lens. Next thing is probably one of the rarest Minolta lenses that I own, and that is the 35mm f1.4 lens. This thing is an absolute tank. It is hefty. However, it still has a 55mm filter thread, and I think it's probably one of the smallest 35 1.4 with autofocus capability that I think is out, that has ever been built. For example, we'll jump ahead. This is the Sigma 35 1.4 with the 67mm filter thread. You can see the size difference right here. That being said, this thing is probably tremendously sharper. This thing, although it is a 35 1.4, it has some vignetting on it. It has some softness to it. So if those of you that like the black mist filters that I personally also still love, this thing, you don't need an additional filter, a black mist filter, to be added onto this in order to get that same ethereal type feel, in my opinion. Next things up is that 50mm f1.4. To my knowledge, this is the same lens kind of group as the Sony A mount 51.4. They only changed the outside but kept the internals the same. Next thing up, probably my second rarest, and that is the Minolta 100mm f2. Oh no, it's just an f2. The Minolta 100 f2. It's about the same size as the 100 or as the 35 1.4. Things built like a tank too. Has beautiful rendering, focus renderings, with it being such a, telephoto focal length with that f2 aperture. Next thing up is that 135 f2.8. This is not the STF version. However, this has an internal focusing, it has a built-in lens hood on this thing, but lens hood down, it's the same size as the 35 1.4 100 f2. I've not shot with this thing yet, but I am going to do a comparison between that and the 100 f2 in the near future. Rounding out the older generation Minolta lenses that I own, that is the macro 100mm f2.8 lens. This thing is massive. I think it is just a little bit over 50% of the size of the 100 f2, but zoom focused all the way out. I don't know if the macro capability is worth the size difference, but I'm going to do a comparison in another future video, and you can be the deciding factor for that one. All right, this is the more newer generation Minolta lenses that I own, and this is the 24 to 105 f3.5 to f4.5. It is a fantastic walk around normal zoom lens. I think with the compactness, that's why I particularly enjoyed this. It is probably the smallest zoom lens that I own. It's even smaller than the Sony G 16 to 35 f4. I haven't shot with this much. I'm interested to see how it compares on the A7R5, which I'll do in a future video. Rounding out this telephoto series is the 100 to 300 APO lens. Its cap fell off. So this is a APO series telephoto 100 to 300. I haven't shot with this one yet, but I'm also interested to test this one out. Finally, rounding out my Minolta series lenses, and that is the beer can, the 70 to 210 internally focusing f4. This is a cult classic in the Minolta community. If you get a Minolta lens and you have a telephoto zoom, typically the chances are it's going to be the beer can, the 70 to 210. So haven't tested this one yet on the A7R5, but in the past I've seen there's quite a bit of vignetting on this, not vignetting, the chromatic aberration. However, it's one of those lenses that you just got to keep around. All right, and I have two Sony A mount lenses with me right now. This one I originally got for my E mount series with the adapter because I didn't want to have to spend over $1,000 for the G Master series, and that is the Zeiss 135 f1.8. Looking up online, this is one of the sharpest, best portrait lenses that Sony created for the A mount series. Got this thing for about I wish. Got it for about $450, and it is an absolute hank of a lens, and it works perfectly with the A7. Finally, got the Zeiss 16 to 35 f2.8 zoom lens, and this lens is an absolute beast. It is extremely sharp and a fantastic color rendition that if you shot with Zeiss glass before, you'd understand. It's a little bit cooler than you would expect from a regular G Master piece of glass, but at the same time, it has that Zeiss pop that I think some of you might know and love. I'll highly recommend it. And I have incoming, I don't have here right now, is the Zeiss 24 to 70 and a incoming Tamron 45 f1.8 lens that I will be getting shortly. And so that's about it. I have built out my kit for the past year, just trying to try out new different glass, not sure what I would like, not sure how it would be different from shooting with digital sensor compared to film. But the lenses themselves, honestly, they were relatively cheap. Got them all for around $50 to $250 minus the 35 1.4 lens. It's just one of those things that I've been wanting to try out for the longest time. Can I shoot film? Do I want to? And so, yeah, so that is it. I'm going to be doing a lot of future videos with comparing and contrasting the old and new, with the Sigma 35 with the Minolta 35, how it compares shooting on a sensor, a digital sensor compared to film. Yeah, so I'm excited. I am extremely looking forward to creating a bunch of new content for you guys doing these comparisons. Let me know which one you would like to see first, which lens kind of you would recommend or not if you guys have shot Minolta before, something that I would be interested in hearing. I'm still relatively new at this, and so this is one of those things that I'm hoping to learn more about. There's a lens that I don't have that you think I should have, also let me know, because I'd be curious to see what your thoughts and opinions are. And so that is it. That is my Minolta kit. And if you like this video, please go ahead and give it some love with like, comment, share, and follow. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Have a good day.